Hi creative friends, my name is Rachel and welcome to the 5th episode of the Treehouse Knits podcast. Today we are going to be talking about what is on my mannequins, Elsie and Emma. We're going to go through briefly works in progress. I'll talk about some acquisitions that I made over the last couple of weeks, and then we'll hop right back into our sheep segment, and we're going to be talking specifically about different breeds of sheep, just getting us ready to go out into the world and talk about specific breeds going forward. So that is our show today, and I just thank you so much for joining me. You can find me as Rachel on Treehouse Knits. I'm Treehouse Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. I do keep my Ravelry project section up to date, so if you have any questions about any of the projects that I'm showing you today, all the details are on Ravelry. And on Instagram, I do try and post once a day or so what I'm up to in terms of my crafty pursuits. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably noticed that I was in Hawaii for a week. We had a great time. I woke up very early the first few mornings because our time difference was 6 hours. So you may have seen some of the knitting that I did on our porch or our lanai very early in the morning, but we had a great time. It's great to be back though in the Midwest. I am coming to you from the beautiful state of Michigan, where the trees outside are gorgeous right now. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast, feel free to make them in the comments below or on our Ravelry podcast page, which it's under Treehouse Knits Podcast. And there you will find information about each show or each episode and other stuff that we put on there. We are a small but mighty group of knitters, and I just appreciate everyone who has already introduced themselves. I'm putting your locations, if you let me, onto a podcast map, and it's so cool to see how knitting can bring together so many people from across the world. So thank you so much for joining me. Why don't we hop right into what is on my mannequins today? On Elsie here, I have the reader's wrap. I thought I'd share this with you because it's a pretty easy project I did several years ago. It's a big rectangle. I made it out of Knit Picks City Tweed. It's an Aran weight. It's basically a rectangular shawl, so it was just a lot of knitting and purling with this really pretty edging, interesting pattern. I'll take it off so you can see it a little closer. And then when you're done with the big rectangle, you just knit pockets out of the same stitch pattern that you made the edge on, and you just sew them on. I got so many compliments on this wrap when I had it out and about. I had a lot of people wanting to just walk home with it and take it home. So this might be a really nice Christmas gift idea for that person in your life who needs a little something over their shoulders while they're reading or knitting. Again, it's the Reader's Wrap, and it's by Lisa Carnahan, I think is her name. You can find it on Ravelry. And the other project I wanted to show you, I knit in a bulky weight. This is on Emma here. This is another side slip cloche that was designed by Lisa Irwin, or Laura Irwin, I should say. I knit this out of a bulky weight yarn. It's Cascade Alpaca Bulky, Baby Alpaca Bulky. I'll get it up close so you can see the beautiful colors in there. It's not just a green, there's golds and russets, a little bit of orange in there. Extremely warm hat. This City Tweed also is similar in that they both have merino wool and alpaca, a little bit of nylon in it. You can find this pattern only in boutique knits. Unfortunately, I contacted Laura Irwin, the designer, a while ago because I was going to do a knit along at our local yarn store and teach people how to knit this hat, and the only way you can get the pattern is through the book. But it's cool because the book is a great book. There's a lot of wonderful patterns in here. But that is the Side Slip Cloche by Laura Irwin. I just love this little flip right here. It's just a unique look. and I know I enjoy wearing it. So that's the side slip cloche. So in terms of works in progress, I have no finished objects this week. When we went to Hawaii, I took 3 projects with. I took 2 pairs of socks, and I took another hat that I'm making for a friend of mine who's helped me out. So I'm just gonna move right into works in progress. Works in progress too. Honestly, I think what we're going to do is save that for the next time, because I've really only worked on socks, and why bore you with just showing you a couple inches of socks. I think we should go right into acquisitions. When I was in Hawaii, I really didn't think I would be finding any yarn or buying any yarn, but of course I was on Instagram and I was enabled. Very Pink Knits on Instagram a few weeks ago showed a picture of some socks she was knitting up. The yarn was turtle purl, and it looked like Burberry patterning. Maybe you've seen them if you subscribe to her on Instagram or if you follow her. Well, while I was in Hawaii, the company called Simply Sock Yarn Company said, "Ooh, we have more turtle purl in stock." And so I was kind of suckered into getting this awesome yarn. I'm so excited. It's the turtle purl in trench coat. It's their self-striping, perfectly matched socks. I make my socks toe up 2 at a time. So I appreciate that it's already, the striping's already figured out how to be perfect. It says this yarn has been dyed to be self-striping. Both strands were dyed together. This will result in matching socks that can be easily knit 2 at a time. So I look forward to using this. This is their nylon, their superwash merino nylon blend, 450 yards. So I'll probably do that on a size 0 needle. So of course, when you buy something online and you're paying for shipping, you can't just get one thing. I have seen this colorway so much on Instagram and Ravelry, and it was so hard to find in sock weight. But lately I have been enjoying a little heavier weight yarn for sock knitting. So this is actually the Regia Design Line 6-ply Arne and Carlos in that colorway that you see quite a bit. It's color 3655. I have no idea what name that is, but I'm really looking forward to knitting these up into socks. I will probably use a size 2. I'll see what kind of fabric I get, and my primary stitch count on these, I will probably start at a 56 and see if that is big enough for my feet. So awesome. So excited to get that purchase. And then another morning, I've been watching Devin from Francofille Knits. I've been watching her podcast and her journey to creating her own yarn colorways and getting into dyeing. And I don't know if it was because I was in Hawaii and missing out on the color changes in the Midwest, but she showed this yarn on Instagram, and I thought, oh, I'm just gonna get it. I'm just gonna get it. So this is her, let's see, her randonnée. I'm sure I'm saying this on Normandy. I'm sure I'm saying this wrong, but beautiful, beautiful fall colors. And of course, I can't get only one when I'm paying for shipping, so I have been eyeing this color of hers called Dijon, and this is in her on her Normandy base as well. So I got that. As I mentioned to Devin, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing with these, but I know I will probably hug them for a while because they're just so beautiful and so soft. So I thought to myself in Hawaii, okay, that's it. I'm not going to buy any more yarn because there's no place in Hawaii to buy yarn. Well, we were gift shopping in a little town called Lahaina on Maui, and actually Lahaina was the original Hawaiian kingdom before Hawaii became a state. And so lots of rich history in Hawaii, and went to this really cool shop called Binky's. It's right on the main street. I think it's called Front Street. And lo and behold, it's a store where local artisans make their crafts and bring them to the store, and they sell them all. So it was really unique. It was different than a lot of the other stores where it's a lot of, I don't know, kind of junk that breaks, 10 minutes after you buy it. And lo and behold, there was a yarn dyer. The woman calls her company Maui Yarns. Her name is Sarah Lindquist, and I picked out some colors that will help me remember my trip to Maui. This one is called Napili Bay. I'll bring it up close for you, and I'm going to insert a picture here about that's of Napili Bay, and you can see how she got her colorway inspired from Napili Bay. Okay, and the other color that I got is called Olivine Pools. I'm going to insert a picture here. To show you her inspiration. She captured the blues and the turquoise and the light blue, the dark blue. She did a great job. So I'm looking forward to knitting these up into a pair of socks for me and my husband that we can wear in the winters of Michigan to remind us of our trip to Maui. At that same store, they had these adorable leather little pouches, and this owl, I couldn't resist. Super cute, opens up. I think it'll hold stitch markers. With my yarn purchase, I got this super cute button. It's a clay button. I think that is the fish, the hama nuka nuka apua fish, but super cute. Put that on a fun project someday. So those were my yarny purchases while I was in Hawaii. Before going to Hawaii, I went back to Holland, Michigan with a friend of mine to Garenhoos again, and I found some really unique items there that I was excited to find. The first items that I found were these tulip point protectors, or you could use them as ends on your DPNs to make them into single point needles. I thought those were so cute. And they also had these tulip repositional stitch markers. I thought were super, super cute, so I had to get some of those. I've been losing my stitch markers lately. They also are now carrying the Cocoa Knits, the Knitter's Keep items, and I got myself a row counter to go on my grandmother's magnetic wrist strap, and it works so well on it. I'm so excited. The counter, I think, is a great one because I like counters that you press better than the kind that you have to twist. And it does give you your row counts, but it also has another side that you can use for when you're doing a section where you have to repeat your rows 4 times. You can also use that to monitor that. And then right by the front counter, an impulse buy, they had the Stash Bot Comprehensive Guide to Building a Useful Stash, which essentially is a really great, I'll just swipe it there. It's just a really great tool that you can use if you see a yarn that you like at a yarn store or online. You don't know exactly what pattern you're going to use, but you know you want to make, say, a sweater out of it. What it does is it tells you, it asks you what gauge you're knitting your sweater in, and then it shows you the different sizes, and then it tells you about how many yards you'll need for that particular project. So, for example, if I knew I was knitting up some socks, I saw on the band that the gauge for the socks was 8 stitches per inch. If I'm making an adult size 10-inch sock, I will need about 320 yards. It's just a really helpful tool. We had one when I worked at the yarn store that was, I think Ann Bud made the tool, and we'd have a lot of times people would come in and say, I love this yarn, it's on sale right now. How many skeins do you think I would need if I wanted to make a sweater? It was just a really nice starting point to figure that out. So I got that for my own knitting library. So I think that covers my mannequins, my works in progress, finished objects, and my acquisitions. That leads us to the sheep segment. I thought this week we would talk a little bit more in depth about the different breeds of sheep and just a few other pieces of information that will help us as we are meeting sheep along the way over the next many podcasts and learning about the specific breeds. So again, in my research, and I've been getting a lot of this information online, a website that's called Sheep Info 101, and also the book and also the Fleece and Fiber Source book by Deborah Robson and Carol Acarius. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. A few items that I discovered this week in my research is the life expectancy of sheep are similar to those of that of a large dog. So about 10 to 12 years the average sheep lives. In terms of their best production years, it's really when they're ages 3 to 6 years of age. They're the best producers of wool, meat, whatever the use is of the sheep that you're looking for. Another interesting piece that I was reading about was the way that they fight. Well, they don't fight, but the way they protect themselves against predators. They are flee, not fight animals. And a sheep truly believes in safety in numbers. So that's where you get the idea of the flock and the shepherd that takes care of the flock. When a shepherd isn't around, though, how is the flock taken care of? Well, naturally, they are flocking animals, so there's safety and protection in numbers. But also, shepherds and farmers have used dogs, llamas, and donkeys as animals that protect the flock. Did you know that sheep do not walk in straight lines? They actually walk side to side, and they do that so that out of their right eye they can see behind them, and then when they turn, when they are not walking straight but walking crooked, they look in the other direction, and that helps them discover predators who are up to 1,200 yards away. So that is another way that they protect themselves. So in terms of different sheep breeds, we are going to break up our breeds into 6 different categories. And this is going to help us as we are meeting our individual breeds along the way. The first type of sheep breed, and probably the one that I'm thinking the most of our sheep that we will encounter will fall into, are the fine wool sheep. What characterizes a fine wool sheep is their small fiber diameter. The fine wool sheep account for 50% of the world's sheep population. Most of the fine wool sheep are merino, or they are ancestors of merino sheep. They've been bred with other merino sheep. In the U.S., maybe you've heard of the Rambouillet. They can trace their ancestry back to the merino sheep, and they are very strong flockers and live the longest. So they really have been bred for the best wool, to live long, and when you're living long, you're evading predators and other animals that will kill you, so they're good flockers. And usually they're found in warmer climates. The second type of breed that we will encounter are the long wools. And they're called long wools because of their long staple. Maybe you've heard of the term staple before. Staple is the length of the actual individual fiber. And sometimes I believe the staple is also called a lock. And the long wools have a staple length that's more than 4 inches long. These animals, the long wools, usually live in cooler, wetter climates, and also areas that have a lot of food for them to eat. A lot of forage kind of food. So interesting that the merino wool, with their fine staple wool, live in warmer climates because they don't need a heavy coat to keep them warm, whereas the long wools, they have a very heavier wool that keeps them comfortable in the harsher climates. Third type of sheep that we will encounter, I don't think we'll encounter these as much. They're the medium wool meat sheep, and they are raised more for their meat. We probably won't focus, like I said, much on these, but sometimes hand spinners do use them. So who knows? We might encounter a medium wool sheep. The fourth type of sheep is carpet wool sheep. These are the sheep that produce the coarsest fibers. They live in the harshest climates. The sheep that fall in this category, Icelandic sheep and Navajo churro, are two different types. If you've ever gone to a yarn store, maybe you've been to Iceland and you've picked up some Icelandic sheep, but if you touch that, it's extremely coarse. It's not something you might want to wear right around your neck, but it does felt really well. Makes great slippers that last. You don't get holes. It's a really breathable and warm fiber that you can knit into a sweater, and that can be your coat. So carpet wool sheep definitely have a use for us knitters. And the next type and the next breed are the hair sheep. This is interesting. I didn't realize that there are sheep out there that lack wool, or they have very little wool and they just shed naturally. They actually make up for 10% of the population, and they are currently the fastest growing segment of or type of sheep in the US. So I don't know if we will encounter some of these types of sheep. If we do, that will be interesting to learn. Why are they growing? What use are they for us? And then finally are the primitive breeds. And we may encounter some of these breeds as we explore locally, because there are a lot of farms, heritage farms, that are, their focus is to really keep these primitive breeds going. What characterizes a primitive breed sheep is there's not much breeding. Not much breeding has happened with them. They usually live in isolated mountain regions or on islands, and many of them are unfortunately on the endangered list. An example that I read about were the Hog Island sheep. Hog Island is an island off the coast of Virginia. These sheep came over in the 1700s they were British sheep, and they just lived on that island and evolved to survive on that island. The island is a pretty harsh place to live. Not many people live on the island. Lots of hurricanes and weather-related issues to that island. So by those sheep living and breeding on the island, it's really shaped them into a specific breed. So that is an example of the primitive breeds. So just to review the different types of sheep, we've got fine wool, long wool, medium wool, meat sheep. We've got the carpet wool, the hair sheep, and the primitive breeds. So I hope I didn't bore you to death here, but I thought it would just be great to look into the different types of sheep before we delve into specific breed. I am planning on visiting some local farms now in the future. Hopefully we'll have some good weather to do that. And if you happen to live in Michigan and know of a farm that you think that I should visit, I would love that information. That would be great. I plan on meeting with the farmers or the sheep herders, shepherds, whatever. That's one thing. I need to figure out what they call themselves. All the terminology is new to me. But my hope is to learn a little bit about why they chose the specific breeds that they chose. What are the challenges they face in being a shepherd in general and with that specific breed? And what are the joys that they receive from the work that they do. So that's kind of the template that I'm looking at for each of the breeds. We'll also talk about specific qualities too. So along the way we will learn together, and I hope you find that segment useful. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Again, if you need any information about what we talked about, I will have show notes I will post down below, as well as in the Ravelry podcast group, Treehouse Knits Podcast, episode 5. I also have a very updated project page. I'm Treehouse Knits on Ravelry if you have any specific questions about my projects. And I look forward to seeing you on the next segment of Treehouse Knits. Take care, and if you liked this video, I would totally be appreciative of you just hitting that like button below, and I love to hear from you all. So please introduce yourself on the Ravelry podcast page. Let me know where you're from. We'll just keep adding to that map. So until the next time, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.